accomplished nothing. He's not even a champion. And he's not even in my weight class already. And, it's a lot of things there doesn't make sense. And plus, at this point in my career, I can do it.
Canelo didn't mince words when talking about Terence Crawford. He dismissed Crawford as a weak opponent, saying he hasn't achieved much, holds no titles, and doesn't belong in Canelo's weight class. But Canelo didn't stop there. He emphasized that his confidence isn't just bravado. It comes from how he feels physically and mentally in the ring. "I feel strong and calm right now," he said. "This is boxing, but no one can beat me at the moment." Though he clarified he meant no disrespect to other fighters, acknowledging the sport has its share of greats, Canelo made it clear he sees himself on another level. In his eyes, no one else can match his experience, sharpness, or dominance. He's focused on cementing a legacy, even if not everyone agrees he's the best. Among the dissenting voices is former world champion and boxing analyst Pauli Malignaggi, who offered a different take on the Canelo versus Crawford conversation. Rather than simply questioning the common narrative, Malignaggi challenged it outright.
Was originally thinking Crawford might be too small. I think Crawford is a way more complete fighter than Canelo ever was. I think Crawford is just, the only risk here is Crawford's small. You think about it though, Duran was a former lightweight and he was able to beat Iran Barkley eventually, right? So it's not out of the question. And this Canelo is not the prime Canelo.
Pauli Malignaggi shared his view that Crawford is the more complete boxer. He acknowledged the clear size difference between the two but pointed to boxing history, where smaller fighters have often defied expectations. For Malignaggi, it's not just about size, it's about skill, and in his eyes, Crawford stands out in that department. It's a bold stance, but one that sparked real conversation throughout the boxing community. Despite Canelo's sharp criticism, he didn't entirely dismiss Crawford. While he may not see the fight as especially meaningful, he did show a measure of respect. In a separate interview, Canelo acknowledged Crawford's accomplishments and talent, offering a rare moment of praise in the midst of an otherwise tense build-up.
This one is Terence Crawford.
Good fighter.
Okay.
Canelo did offer some praise for Crawford, calling him a talented fighter and recognizing his contributions to boxing. However, he remained unmoved in his belief that Crawford doesn't pose a real threat. His compliment felt more like a polite acknowledgement than a shift in perspective. For Canelo, it's about business, and is highly selective about who earns his focus. Meanwhile, Pauli Malignaggi didn't stop at praising Crawford. He also delivered pointed criticism toward Canelo. In a separate segment, Malignaggi questioned whether Canelo still has the same fire he once did. For him, it's not just about technique or stats, it's about grit and mentality in the toughest rounds. And in Pauli's...
Canelo was trying to steal bags while half-assing it. When Canelo has been put in tough situations, in the moments where he's had to really dig down, what has he done? He hasn't really dug down and gone for broke in fights where he's been losing. He just kind of accepted the loss.
Like Bivol?
We saw that with Floyd too, or early on with Floyd too. People will say that he was young, but he never really took a risk in the Floyd fight once he was outclassed. He just accepted it, like, all right, this guy.
Malignaggi pointed to several key moments in Canelo's career where, in his view, the Mexican star failed to respond like a true warrior, especially when the tide turned against him. He argued that the current version of Canelo no longer carries the same hunger that once fueled his rise and now seems more driven by massive paydays than by legacy-defining challenges. To support his case, Malignaggi referenced past fights, including Canelo's loss to Floyd Mayweather, as examples of him folding under pressure. It's a harsh critique, but one that stirred serious debate about where Canelo truly stands in today's boxing landscape. And just when the discussion couldn't get any more intense, Pauli doubled down. He drew a sharp contrast between the mental makeup of Canelo and Crawford, suggesting the real difference isn't about skill or size, it's about mindset. In Malignaggi's eyes, attitude, hunger, and how a fighter handles adversity are what separate the greats, and that's...
Love to see Crawford win, because I feel like if Canelo gets this payday, which is going to be a big payday, and then also gets the win out of it, it's just too much of a reward for outright ducking Benavidez and being allowed to duck his mandatory contender while holding all the belts hostages at 168 pounds for so long and not letting that weight class run its course.
Malignaggi sees something in Terence Crawford that reminds him of Floyd Mayweather, a relentless drive to stay sharp, hungry, and dominant. In his eyes, Crawford still fights like he has something to prove, always carrying a chip on his shoulder. In contrast, Pauli questions whether Canelo still has that same competitive fire, especially when the going gets tough. He believes Canelo no longer bites down like he once did when faced with adversity. This isn't just critique, it's a challenge to the core of who these fighters are. For Malignaggi, that difference in mindset is what tilts the scales in Crawford's favor. A Crawford victory, he suggests, is more likely not just because of skill but because of desire. But Pauli didn't stop at the fighters themselves. In a more impassioned moment, he turned his focus to the sport's broader issues, particularly the politics of boxing and the lack of accountability he sees within it. To him, this matchup is bigger than Crawford.
Let me tell you something, man. Terence Crawford is one of the smartest fighters I've ever seen. Very smart. Always in shape, you know. And he can figure out anybody. And it don't make a difference if it's two weight classes or not. If you have it here, and you have the skills to match this, that's tough to do. No matter who you are. It's not about power. Just because you're strong don't mean you're going to win. You know? That doesn't work. You got to have the skills in this game. And Terence Crawford has the skills to fight anybody in the world.
Malignaggi argues that a Canelo victory would send the wrong message, rewarding practices like sidestepping mandatory challenges, stalling an entire division, and choosing safer, high-reward fights. He singled out the long-delayed matchup with David Benavidez, the clear contender at 168 pounds, as a glaring example. In Paulie's view, Canelo's unchallenged reign, winning all the belts without defending them properly, has done more harm than good for the division. That's why he's backing Crawford, not just as the underdog but as a potential disruptor to the current system. It's a passionate stance born out of frustration with the way the sport is run at its highest levels. While Malignaggi focused on the politics and mental dynamics of the fight, renowned trainer Ronnie Shields brought attention back to the fundamentals. In a recent interview, Shields praised Crawford, not for the headlines or hype.
Canelo would have to make 168. Crawford's not going to have no problem at 168. And like I say,
Ronnie Shields didn't hold back in his praise for Terence Crawford, calling him one of the smartest boxers he's ever seen. He highlighted Crawford's ability to stay in top condition, adapt on the fly, and break down any opponent, regardless of size or weight class. For Shields, the fight isn't about brute strength or physical dimensions. It's about technique, intelligence, and discipline. And Crawford, he believes, excels in all three. Shields is confident that Crawford has the tools to beat anyone, even someone as seasoned and powerful as Canelo. Crawford shares that belief, pointing to his well-rounded skill set as the reason he's such a dangerous opponent, no matter the weight. But Shields went a step further. He didn't just praise Crawford's talent, he made the case for why a fight at 168 pounds makes sense. While critics raised
Floyd for Canelo. Canelo was a bigger fight. You know, he was bigger, he was stronger. Floyd was smarter. Floyd outsmarted Canelo. That just teaches you and shows you that you don't have to be a power puncher if you're going up 1 or 2 weight divisions. It doesn't work that way. It's here. It's here, your knowledge. Knowledge is king. But it's the same thing. With Crawford going up to fight a Canelo Alvarez, two weight divisions. Okay, Canelo probably walks around 190, maybe, or a little bit less. But Crawford probably walks around 180. You know? So 168 is not gonna be a problem for him. You know, and people keep saying, oh, but the weight difference. No, it ain't that. Crawford don't have to kill himself to get to 68.
Shields emphasized that Canelo, like any fighter, would have to make weight, and that Crawford wouldn't be at a disadvantage simply because of size. In his view, Crawford's skills are more than enough to level the playing field, even at super middleweight. Shields firmly believes Crawford has everything it takes to not just compete but win at 168 pounds. For him, this fight is about legacy. He compared Crawford's path to that of Roy Jones Jr., who moved through divisions and made history doing it. Shields sees a similar opportunity for Crawford to prove greatness by taking on the biggest challenges to drive his point home. Shields referenced the iconic Mayweather vs. Canelo bout, not to rehash the past, but to underline what truly wins fights. It's not raw power or physical size, he said, it's the mindset, the skill, and the intelligence behind every move. In his eyes, Crawford vs. Canelo isn't just a great fight, it's the one boxing needs right now.
But Bud actually has a chance of really winning this fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight. You know, Canelo, yeah, he probably, people think he's probably the stronger person going into the fight with him been fighting at 168, but he started his career off at, I think, 147 and climbed his way up. So it's not like he was just a person that came in the game that big, you know. Bud is ready though. Like when it comes for fight time, I think Bud's gonna be 100% ready. He trains year round. Like he shows a lot of the young fighters the way, you know. He treats his body good. He doesn't drink, smoke, none of that. So when it's time to fight in a few months and we get to watch them work, I think Bud got a great chance to win.
Shields pointed to how Floyd Mayweather once defeated a younger, stronger Canelo, not through power, but through sheer ring intelligence. He sees that same potential in Crawford, confident that Crawford's boxing IQ can neutralize the size gap just as Mayweather did. Shields also pushed back on concerns about weight, stating that Crawford is physically comparable to Canelo and would likely be comfortable at 168 pounds. In fact, he suggested Canelo might have the tougher time making weight. For Shields, this fight isn't about who's bigger, it's about who's better. And with Crawford's skill set, he believes it's a matchup worth watching and one Crawford is fully capable of winning. Adding to the growing support around Crawford, former boxer and trainer Troy Nash offered his perspective, one rooted not just in observation but in personal experience. Having worked with Crawford firsthand, Nash's words didn't just echo the sentiment of belief, they amplified it, reinforcing the confidence surging through.
Slept on, man. He doesn't get enough respect and credit for what he's done. Canelo's fought, I mean, arguably the best fighters of this generation around his weight class. You know, of course we want to see him fight Benavidez, but besides that, I mean, who hasn't Canelo fought? You know, he went up to fight B-Ball. He fought Caleb Plant. He's in fought all the top guys, so he definitely deserves his credit. And even if he loses this fight, he still needs to be deemed as one of the greatest of our generation. If Bud loses, he needs to be deemed as one of the greatest of our generation. The fans just need to give both of them their credit, win or lose, because they're going to give us the fight that we want.
Troy Nash, while personally close to Crawford, was quick to clarify that his opinion isn't rooted in bias, it's based on first-hand observation. He views the matchup as a true 50-50th fight and reminded critics that Canelo didn't begin his career as a big man either. Like Crawford, he moved up through the weight classes to reach where he is now. What stood out most to Nash was Crawford's discipline and lifestyle. He praised Crawford's year-round training, attention to his body, and unwavering focus, even when no fight is on the horizon. In Nash's view, that level of dedication is what truly gives Crawford a real shot once the bell rings. Despite his strong belief in Crawford's chances, Nash struck a respectful tone toward Canelo. He acknowledged the legacy Canelo has built and addressed the criticisms that often follow him. For Nash, this fight is bigger than a win or loss.
Roger Mayweather, when I worked with him, the late Roger Mayweather, I was talking to him and he says, you know, nowadays, MFers, you know, they have all these different divisions. We used to fight guys of different weights. He goes, it's not the difference in the weights. He goes, it's the caliber of skill level that you have. And I always thought about that, you know. So can he beat Canelo? Of course. You know, can Canelo beat him? Yes. You know, so it's that type of fight. But I'm glad for Canelo because he's at the tail end of his career. You know, talking about Benavidez and all that, but that ship is already sailed. He don't need him. Yeah. You know, but Terence Crawford and Jake Paul, that's gonna happen. Well, that would have been great, you know.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah, but that's, you know, nice way for Canelo to finish his career.
Nash also emphasized that Canelo often doesn't get the full credit he deserves. He's faced some of the toughest fighters of his generation, including Caleb Plant and Dmitry Bivol, and never shied away from the challenge. While many fans eagerly await the Benavidez matchup, Canelo's resume speaks for itself. Nash believes that no matter the outcome of the Crawford fight, both Canelo and Crawford deserve recognition as all-time greats. He urged fans to appreciate both fighters, not just for stepping into the ring but for giving boxing a truly meaningful bout. Adding his perspective to the debate, legendary cutman Jacob Stitch Duran shared insights drawn from his experience, recalling an earlier conversation with the late Roger Mayweather. Duran, with his old-school wisdom, stressed that ability will always outweigh size. For him, this fight is about bloodlines.
I don't bet, but if I was going to bet one way or the other, I'd go the distance fight. You know, I think Terence Crawford's smart enough to move for 12 rounds. You know, you're talking about getting hit solid. He has to get hit solid by Canelo. So, yeah, that'd be my prediction on that.
Definitely was.
So don't go bet money on me now.
Stitch Duran recalled how fighters from past eras often squared off against opponents from different weight classes, and in those bouts, size was never the deciding factor, it was always skill. That's why he believes both Canelo and Crawford are capable of defeating each other. Ultimately, skill will determine the outcome of this fight. He also acknowledged Canelo's current position, suggesting that while the Benavidez fight may no longer be in the cards, this matchup could serve as a fitting capstone to Canelo's career, regardless of the result. For Duran, this is a high-level chess match that not only honors both fighters' legacies but also gives boxing fans a fight with real significance to discuss for years to come. After expressing his admiration for both fighters, Duran, known for his candidness, offered a straightforward assessment of how he sees the fight unfolding.
The problem is that Canelo's bigger, and he's significantly bigger. And in addition to being larger, Canelo's greatest capability, talent, my way of thinking in the ring is that you cannot hurt him. He has the best punch resistance in boxing. So the notion of the smaller, more lithe Terence Crawford going in and scoring a rampaging knockout over Canelo Alvarez, I just don't see it. I think he has to focus on trying to win the fight over the long course of the fight, create action and punishment over 12 rounds and look to win a decision. Will probably throw more punches than...
Jim Lampley pointed out that the fight starts with a notable weight disparity, roughly 21 pounds, which cannot be ignored. While Crawford brings speed, talent, and heart to the ring, Canelo offers natural size and strength, developed through years in higher weight classes. Lampley called Canelo the clear favorite for that reason, believing that his physical edge may be too much for Crawford to overcome. This isn't a knock on Crawford, but rather the undeniable reality of boxing when two powerful fighters from different divisions face off. Legendary promoter Bob Arum also weighed in on the debate. Having worked closely with Terence Crawford throughout his career, Arum knows exactly what Crawford brings to the table. While he acknowledged the size difference, Arum stated firmly that if anyone has the ability to overcome
with Canelo and Terence, but if any fighter has a chance with Canelo, it's Terence. Terence is a super talent, and he has a real chance, despite the weight disparity, to beat Canelo. A real chance.
Bob Arum acknowledged the obvious. Canelo is the naturally larger man, and that's a significant factor. However, he also described Crawford as a super talent, one with a rare ability to overcome even the most considerable physical disadvantages. According to Arum, the weight disparity doesn't eliminate Crawford's chances. Instead, it raises the stakes. He views this as more than just a tough battle for Crawford. It's the kind of challenge that could define his legacy. Despite the odds, Arum believes there's a real possibility this fight could shock the world. Building on his earlier comments, Arum went deeper into how he envisions the fight unfolding, drawing from his decades of experience and expertise. With the confidence of a seasoned promoter, he didn't hesitate to take a clear stance on the matchup.